is the first dress I'm going to be working on, and it's the one that probably needs the most work. I got it for $8 at Goodwill. Basically, I just have taken the sides, hem the length of it, and move the sleeves over because as you can see, they are way far off my shoulder. First things first, I'm making a line of where I have kind of an idea of where I want the hem to be once it's complete. So this will be a reference for what I do next. So I'm going to take my ruler and measure from the bottom of the dress and just figure out exactly the measurements I need. And then once I have that, I'm just going to mark around the entire dress. So I'm going to use this line as a reference, and I'm going to mock hem it with pins just to make sure that this is actually where I want the hem to be. Now that I've tried it on and confirmed that this is where I want my hem to be, I'm going to undo the actual hem and measure out the seam allowance. And once I have this measurement, I'm going to put a line below the reference line that I just made, and this will be the line that I cut in this clip, as you can see. Now it's time to actually hem the dress. So the seam allowance for this dress was 1.5 inches, so I folded up a 1/2 inch and then ironed it, and then 1 inch and ironed it, and it created the hem for me basically. And then I had to hand sew the rest of it. So the hem that was already on it had a slip stitch, as you can see here. So that's exactly what I did, and basically a slip stitch is a stitch that's invisible to the outside, so you won't see it on the front of the dress. And basically how you do it is you take like one little tiny piece of thread from the fabric, like the main fabric, and then take a few from the hem, and this is what it looks like when it's done. Moving on to the side seams of the dress, I had to take in, I think it was like 2 inches from the sides because this dress was just way too big. So I marked the 2 inches all the way down, and I marked it on both sides because it's a very slippery fabric. So when I pinned it, as I'm doing so here, you have to make sure you pin it and you can see it on both sides. So yeah, you can see it follows both of the lines, and this just helps with sewing. But before I sewed the side seams, I had to remove the pockets and kind of like reorient them and put them 2 inches inward. So that's exactly what I did. I didn't really go through all the steps just because I didn't really know what I was doing and I was just trying to figure it out. So yeah, this is me pinning the pocket into the dress. It was actually very difficult, but once you reference the other pocket, it made it a little bit easier. So I did that, and then I sewed both of the seams. There were 2 seams on the pockets, as you can imagine, and yeah, they turned out pretty good actually, so I'm pretty proud about that. Then once I figured out the pockets, I sewed the rest of the side seam, and this was just self-explanatory. You just follow the lines that you drew in the beginning, and yeah, it's really easy. Then I cut off the extra fabric, which I figured out was not a good idea because I ran into a lot of problems with this when I tried to fix the sleeves, as I'm doing so right now. The sleeves were honestly the hardest part. I don't know how to do sleeves. I've done them a couple times before, but they are very hard, and I had to move them over like 1 inch. So yeah, it was really hard, but basically I kind of just gathered them with a loose piece of thread and tried to just pin them where I eventually figured out they would need to go, which took a lot of trial and error, but I finally got it. And then pinning them was also very hard because I messed it up 5 million times. Once I finally got it, I sewed it all together, and they didn't come out too bad. They definitely weren't perfect, but they do look a lot better than they did because they're actually on my shoulders now. So yeah, after all that hard work that literally took me like 3 days, it came out pretty good. So this is the before. And this is the after. I think it's super cute. I like that it's shorter and not as big. And yeah, I just think it's a cute dress. This is the next dress, and it's probably one of my favorites. I actually got it for free because I worked a fashion show and the brand kindly gave it to me. However, it is a little bit too big. I ordered the wrong size, I guess, so I have to hem it and I have to tack the shoulders over because they are just way too far off my shoulder. So I'm starting this dress off how I started the other one, just measuring kind of where I think I want the hem to be and just making sure that that's actually where I want it to be, because you do not want to mess this up and then have to redo everything that you just did. So I'm just pinning it again, just making sure, and then once I am sure, I can do my seam allowance and cut along that line. this hem was more of kind of the same type, but it was very, very small. So I basically rolled over like a 1/4 of an inch and then rolled that over into another 1/4 inch and then sewed that all along. And then I had to switch the tacks on my shoulders. So I basically just took the little threads that were keeping it in place and kind of pinned where I wanted the actual tacks to go. This definitely isn't the most professional way to do this, but I didn't want to like take out the whole entire lining and try and fix it. And this was just simple. You just had to kind of re-tack it, and yeah, that's the result. So this is the before of this dress. And this is the after. So not much has changed. It is a little shorter, which I enjoy, but overall I think it came out great. The next dress is this 60s kind of vintage looking dress. I got it for $25 at a consignment store, but it was too big, so I had to hem it, and I just don't like the collar, so I want to remove that as well. So again, I start all my dresses the same way, just measuring where I want the hem to be, testing it out. I do not want to mess it up, as I said, because that's just an awful thing for it to happen if you have to take out the hem that you just did. So I pinned it, made sure everything was perfect before I started on it, and it was. So then I examined the hem that was already there to get some measurements. Then I made my seam allowance line. I had to measure, I think, 1/2 inch from where I wanted the hem to be, because it is a very small hem that I have to do. So I took to ironing and ironed a 1/4 of an inch and then turned it up and ironed another 1/4 of an inch, so it kind of looks like this, and then I sewed it together, which was super easy, which was nice. Lucky for me, this dress also had a lining, so basically I just took the exact same steps that I did for the other one, so I'm not going to re-explain what I did. I'll just go through it really fast so you could see it. But yeah, this was a little thicker of a hem. I think it was like 1/2 inch and then 1/2 inch folded over. But it was super easy to sew, and then I finished it. So this is the before. And this is the after. I love the navy blue collar, and I love the length of it. I think it just looks very 60s, so yeah. This is the last dress that I have. I got it from Goodwill for only $2. They were having a sale day, which was amazing. There's not much to fix on this one, but I do have to hem it because it's way too long and take this beading off. So like the 3 dresses before, this one is super simple. It's kind of the exact same steps. I feel like with dresses you would find that there's only so many ways to do them, and they're all pretty similar. So I'm not going to go into too much depth, but I will show you the sped up steps of me doing it. So as you can see here, I messed up the first measurement and had to redo it, which is fine. Like I said, you don't want to make that mistake. And now we're all ready to start cutting, making the hem. There is a lining with this one, so that's the only part that's a little bit different. So basically the hem, you have to fold it up, and then I ironed it. And in this case, the lining was sewed inside the hem, which means that I have to hand sew this all because a machine is just going to make that not happen. So I basically ironed a 1/4 of an inch on top of what I had ironed previously, if that makes sense. Now it's time to cut the lining. I kind of just freehanded this. I didn't know exactly where to cut, but I kind of got a rough idea by measuring lots of different things that I won't go into. But then I cut it and tucked it inside the little hem that we made. And then I just pinned it. So it worked out pretty well. It was pretty easy. Alright, almost done with this dress. We just have to hand stitch the entire hem, which takes freaking 3 hours long. But yeah, so for this one, I just did a slip stitch like we did on the pink one. Again, it's just easy and it's good because it doesn't show through to the front. So this is what it looks like. I hope you can see it. It was very tiny and hard to show, but yeah, then the last step is taking off the jewels, which was actually the fun part, and it was super easy. I just had to seam rip everything and then cut it off from the collar, and yeah, that is it, and we are done, thank God. This is the before of the dress, and this is the after. I think it looks a lot younger now without the beading and just making it shorter, so I like how it came out. So that is all my dresses. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to watch more of my videos, I will put a few over here. And don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you guys later. Okay, bye.